Marcus Tank Rodriguez wiped the sweat from his brow as he guided the rust bucket through the asteroid field surrounding Mining Station Theta 7. The aging cargo hauler groaned and shuddered with each course correction, but she'd gotten him through. Worse scrapes than this. He reached for his energy drink, a neon green concoction he bought from a sketchy dealer on Proxima Station, and took a long gulp. The stuff tasted like battery acid mixed with synthetic lime, but it kept him alert. During the 30-hour hauls. Incoming vessel, this is Galactic Health Authority enforcement. Cut your engines and prepare for boarding. Tank nearly choked on his drink. The GHA only showed up when someone was trafficking something truly nasty: bioweapons, plague samples, or worse. He ran down his cargo manifest in his head. Protein bars, water recyclers, mining equipment, and a crate of those weird crystals the Centaurians paid premium rates for. Nothing that should interest the health police. Copy that, Authority. Cutting engines now. Tank's hands moved automatically through the shutdown sequence while his mind raced. The inspection bay at Theta 7 was a massive cylindrical chamber that could accommodate ships 10 times the size of his hauler. Automated docking clamps secured the rust bucket with mechanical precision that reminded him of the assembly lines back on Earth, before the corporations moved everything off-world. The boarding party consisted of 3 beings that made Tank's skin crawl. The lead inspector was a hegemony official, tall, gray-skinned, with those unsettling black eyes that seemed to see right through you. Behind him walked a Centaurian medic, its multiple arms carrying scanning equipment that hummed with barely contained energy. The third member was human, which somehow made Tank feel worse instead of better. Marcus Rodriguez, the human said, consulting a holographic display. You're carrying contraband in violation of 17 different galactic treaties. That's impossible, Tank replied, genuinely confused. I've got permits for everything in my hold. The hegemony official stepped forward, its voice carrying the kind of authority that had crushed 1,000 rebellions. Our sensors detected a Class 12 bioweapon aboard your vessel. Zerion 9, to be precise. A single drop can kill 3,000 humanoids in under 4 minutes. Tank's blood ran cold. He'd heard whispers about Zerion 9 in the spacer. Ars horror stories about entire colonies wiped out by invisible death. But he'd never seen it, never even been in the same system as the stuff. There's been a mistake. I don't have any. The signature is emanating from your personal quarters. The Centaurian medic interrupted, its translator giving its voice a mechanical quality. Specifically, from your refrigeration unit. As they made their way through the ship's cramped corridors, Tank's mind worked furiously. His fridge contained nothing but food, water, and those energy drinks. Unless he remembered the dealer, who'd sold him the drinks, a nervous little man with darting eyes, who'd claimed they were imported Earth cola with special additives. The price had been too good to be true, but Tank had been broke and desperate for something to keep him awake. On the long hauls, the inspection team's equipment went absolutely berserk when they opened his refrigerator. Alarms shrieked, containment fields activated, and the Centaurian medic began frantically calibrating its sensors. There, sitting innocently between a protein bar and a water bulb, was a half-empty bottle of neon green liquid. Dear gods, the human inspector whispered, "You've got enough concentrated Zerion 9 to sterilize a moon." Tank stared at the bottle, the same bottle he'd been drinking from for weeks. The same bottle he'd drained and refilled dozens of times. The same bottle that had kept him alert and functioning when exhaustion threatened to send him drifting into an asteroid or star. "That's not possible," he said slowly. "I've been drinking that stuff for 3 weeks. The silence that followed was deafening. 3 pairs of eyes, human, hegemony, and Centaurian, stared at him with expressions ranging from disbelief to horror. The Centaurian medic's translator made a sound like static as it tried to process what it had just heard. You drank Xeria 9? The hegemony official managed. Tank shrugged. Yeah, it tastes like garbage, but it works. To prove his point, he reached for the bottle. Asterisk, the reaction was immediate and extreme. The Zentarian medic's multiple arms flailed as it backed away, knocking over scanning equipment in its panic. The human inspector dove behind a bulkhead, shouting into his communicator for emergency containment protocols. Only the hegemony official remained still, though Tank could see the barely controlled terror in its black eyes. Don't move, the official commanded, its voice cracking with strain. That substance is the most lethal bioweapon in known space. A single drop on your skin would kill you before you could scream. Tank looked down at the bottle in his hand, then at the three beings cowering in his cargo bay. The situation was so absurd he almost laughed. Look, I don't know what your sensors are telling you, but this is just energy drink. Watch. Before anyone could stop him, he unscrewed the cap and took a long drink, swallowing audibly. The Zentarian medic made a sound like a dying reactor. The human inspector began praying in 3 different languages. The hegemony official simply stared, its face cycling through expressions of shock, confusion, and something that might have been fear. You should be dead, the official whispered. You should be liquefying from the inside out. Your nervous system should be shutting down. Your blood should be turning to acid. Tank wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. Well, I'm not. And I've been drinking this stuff for weeks. He gestured to the empty bottles in his recycling bin. Got a bulk discount from some dealer on Proxima Station. Guy said it was imported Earth Cola with special additives for long-haul drivers. The hegemony. Official's communicator crackled to life. Tank caught fragments of the frantic conversation words, like impossible, contamination, and immediate lockdown. The inspection team was no longer treating him like a smuggler. They were treating him like a phenomenon that shouldn't exist. I need to contact my superiors, the official said, its voice hollow. This changes everything. While the team huddled in urgent conference, Tank finished his drink and tried to make sense of what was happening. In the distance, he could see mining station Theta 7 through the bay's observation windows, a massive industrial complex built into a hollowed-out asteroid. The station housed 40,000 miners, technicians, and support staff, all working to extract rare minerals from the asteroid belt. It was a testament to galactic engineering, but compared to the Detroit foundries where Tank had grown up, it seemed almost quaint. The human inspector agent Chun, according to his badge, approached cautiously. Mr. Rodriguez, I need to ask you some questions about your background. Specifically, where you were born and raised. Detroit, Earth. Lived there until I was 25, then signed up for the Colonial Transport Corps. Tank shrugged. Nothing special about it. Detroit, Chun repeated, making notes on his tablet. Industrial district? Yeah. Dad worked the steel mills before they shut down. Mom was a chemical plant supervisor. I grew up breathing air that would probably kill most aliens. Tank paused, a memory surfacing. Actually, we had a joke about that. Mom used to say Earthers could drink anything because we'd already survived breathing everything. The Zentarian medic's translator buzzed with what sounded like excitement. It approached Tank with newfound fascination, its multiple arms manipulating scanning devices with surgical precision. Your cellular structure is remarkable, it said. Your liver is processing the Xerian 9 toxins as if they were simple alcohols. Your kidney function is operating at 300% of normal Terran baseline. And your neural pathways are showing adaptation patterns I've never seen outside of laboratory conditions. Tank was beginning to understand that he was no longer just a cargo hauler with a permit problem. He was something unprecedented, a human, who could not only survive the galaxy's deadliest poison, but actually thrive on it. The implications were staggering, and judging by the increasingly frantic communications between the inspection team and their superiors, he wasn't the only one who realized it. What happens now? Tank asked. The hegemony official's expression had shifted from fear to something much more dangerous: calculation. Now, Mr. Rodriguez, you're going to help us understand exactly what makes you so unique. Dr. Kira Voss had spent 15 years studying xenobiology for the Galactic Health Authority, but nothing had prepared her for the human sitting across from her in the station's medical bay. Marcus Rodriguez looked like any other colonial transport. Cores driver weathered, practical, and more than a little rough around the edges. But the readings from her instruments told a different story entirely. Your blood work is fascinating, she said, pulling up holographic displays that showed his cellular structure in stunning detail. The Xerion-9 toxins are being broken down by enzymes that shouldn't exist in human physiology. It's as if your body was specifically designed to process this particular compound. Tank shifted uncomfortably on the examination table. Look, Doc, I appreciate the science lesson, but I've got a cargo run to finish. My buyers on Kepler Station are expecting those mining supplies in 48 hours. I'm afraid that's not possible, Kajin Chun said from the doorway. You're officially under protective custody, pending further investigation. The room fell silent, except for the hum of medical equipment. Tank's easy demeanor evaporated. Protective. Custody? From what? Dr. Vess exchanged glances with Chun. From the people who are going to want to kill you once they realize what you represent. She activated a secure holographic display that showed the galactic political landscape, a complex web of alliances, trade routes, and power structures that had maintained relative stability for 3 centuries. The hegemony controls 70% of galactic trade through something called the Dependency Protocol. They maintain authority over lesser species by controlling access to essential resources and technologies. And, Tank prompted, and Xerion-9 is their ultimate enforcement tool, Chun continued. It's not just a bioweapon, it's a regulatory mechanism. Step out of line, and your water supply gets contaminated. Try to rebel, and your atmosphere processors mysteriously malfunction. The hegemony has used controlled Xerion-9 exposure to pacify entire civilizations. Dr. Voss pulled up another display showing the chemical structure of the compound. It's derived from a plant that only grows on quarantined Deathworld's planets, so hostile that even the hegemony won't risk harvesting. Operations there? The scarcity makes it incredibly valuable, and the lethality makes it incredibly feared. But I'm not dead, Tank pointed out. So what does that mean? It means, Dr. Voss said quietly, that everything the hegemony has told the galaxy about human limitations is a lie. The implications hit Tank like a physical blow. He thought about Earth officially classified as a marginal world, suitable only for basic resource extraction and manual labor. Humans were considered a utility species, useful for dangerous jobs, but lacking the sophistication of more advanced civilizations. The hegemony's official position was that humans were too primitive to handle advanced technology or participate in galactic governance. You're saying Earth is actually a death world? Tank asked. The deadliest one we've encountered, Dr. Voss. Confirmed. Your planet's atmosphere, ecosystem, and geological activity would be lethal to 80% of known species. The fact that humans evolved there explains your immunity to Xerion-9. You're already adapted to toxins that would kill most galactic citizens. Chun activated his communicator. We need to get you off this station. My sources in intelligence are reporting unusual hegemony fleet movements in this sector. They're mobilizing resources to contain this situation. Contain how? Tank asked, though he was beginning to suspect the answer. By eliminating the evidence, Dr. Voss said. If other species learn that humans are immune to their primary control mechanism, it could destabilize the entire galactic order. Tank stood up, his mind racing. So what are you suggesting? That I hide? That I pretend this never happened? I'm suggesting you survive, Chun said urgently, because there are others who need to know the truth. There are human colonies throughout the galaxy, millions of people who have been deliberately kept ignorant of their own capabilities. They deserve to know what they really are. Dr. Voss was already packing her equipment. I'm coming with you. The medical data I've collected is proof of human genetic adaptation. It's evidence that could change everything. And I know someone who can help us disappear, Sean added. Captain Sarah Reaper McKenzie runs the most successful smuggling operation in the Outer Rim. She's also human, and she's been asking questions about hegemony trade restrictions for years. Tank looked around the medical bay one last time. 24 hours ago, he'd been a simple cargo hauler worried about making his delivery schedule. Now he was potentially the key to unraveling a conspiracy that spanned the galaxy. The transition was dizzying, but something deep inside him, something that had been shaped by growing up in the industrial wasteland of Detroit, told him he was ready for whatever came next. All right, he said, let's go change the galaxy. Captain Sarah Reaper McKenzie's ship, the Shadowhawk, was nothing like Tank's utilitarian cargo hauler. Where the rust bucket was all exposed pipes and cramped quarters, the Shadowhawk was a sleek predator built for speed and stealth. Her bridge was a symphony of advanced technology that would have impressed the hegemony's finest engineers. So you're the human who's been chugging bioweapons, Mackenzie said, not looking up from her navigation console. She was a compact woman, with silver-streaked hair and the kind of scars that came from surviving encounters that killed other people. Chun says you're important enough to risk my crew and my ship. I'm just a cargo hauler, Tank replied, still overwhelmed by the days. Revelations. No, Dr. Voss interjected, studying readings on her portable scanner. You're proof that humanity has been systematically undervalued and controlled. Your cellular adaptation isn't unique. It's what all humans could potentially achieve if they weren't being suppressed. Mackenzie finally turned to face them, her expression serious. I've been running cargo through hegemony space for 20 years. I've seen human colonies where people work 18-hour shifts in mining operations that would kill most species. In minutes. I've seen human children sold into indentured servitude because their parents couldn't pay arbitrary tax assessments. And I've wondered why we put up with it. Because we didn't know we had a choice, Tank said. Exactly. Mackenzie activated the ship's holographic display, showing their current position relative to the nearest jump point. But the hegemony knows. They've always known. Earth isn't just a marginal world. It's the source of the most valuable substances in the galaxy. The soil bacteria that produces Xerion-9, the atmospheric compounds that create synthetic gravity wells, the mineral deposits that power faster-than-light travel. They all originate from death worlds like Earth. Agent Chun was monitoring communications from the station they just left. We've got problems. 3 hegemony destroyers just dropped out of hyperspace. They're not here for a routine inspection. The Shadowhawk shuddered as Mackenzie engaged the engines. They're here to clean up loose ends. The question is whether they're planning to destroy the station or just capture us. They can't destroy Theta 7, Dr. Voss protested. There are 40,000 people on that station. 40,000 witnesses to a classified incident, Mackenzie corrected. The hegemony has sterilized entire systems to protect smaller secrets. Then this. Tank felt something cold settle in his stomach. We have to warn them. Already on it, Mackenzie replied, her fingers flying over the communication controls. But the hegemony is jamming all standard frequencies. I'm trying to punch. Threw on emergency channels. The ship's proximity alarms began screaming. Through the bridge viewports, Tank could see the hegemony vessel's massive triangular ships bristling with weapons that could crack a moon in half. They were moving with purpose, deploying in a formation that suggested they were preparing for orbital bombardment. They're not just here for us, Tank realized. They're going to destroy everything. Mackenzie's expression was grim. The mining operation, the station, the asteroid field, all of it. Then they'll claim it was an industrial accident. Maybe a reactor malfunction or a mining explosion. Dr. Voss was frantically working on her scanner. I'm detecting massive energy buildups in their primary weapon systems. They're preparing to fire. Tank moved to the navigation console. Can we stop them? 3 destroyers against 1 modified freighter? Mackenzie shook her head. We'd last about 30 seconds. Then we don't fight them, Tank said, his mind working. Through possibilities, we outsmart them. He thought about the cargo manifests he'd been carrying specifically, the Zentarian crystals that commanded premium prices throughout the galaxy. The crystals were valuable because they amplified psionic abilities, but they had another property that most traders didn't know about. They were incredibly unstable when exposed to certain energy frequencies. The mining operation, Tank said. Suddenly, what are they extracting from these asteroids? Quantum resonant minerals, Mackenzie replied. Stuff that's worth more than gold because it can amplify subspace communications and destabilize energy weapons. Tank finished. If we can get those crystals to the right frequency, we can create a feedback loop that will overload their weapon systems. Dr. Voss looked up from her scanner. That's theoretically possible, but the targeting would have to be perfect. And we'd need to get close enough to the destroyers to affect their systems. Leave that to me, Mackenzie said, her expression shifting. From grim to predatory. I've been flying these lanes for 20 years. I know every asteroid, every gravitational anomaly, every sensor shadow in this belt. Tank strapped himself into the co-pilot's seat as Mackenzie threw the Shadowhawk into a diving turn that would have torn apart a less robust vessel. This is insane. Welcome to the revolution, Mackenzie replied, her hands dancing over the controls. With practiced precision. Time to show the galaxy what humans are really capable of. The Shadowhawk screamed through the asteroid field like a metal comet, weaving between chunks of rock the size of city blocks, while hegemony destroyers fired at shadows and sensor ghosts. Mackenzie's piloting was a masterclass in controlled chaos. She used the gravitational fields of the larger asteroids to slingshot them past detection grids, then disappeared into the electromagnetic interference generated by the mining operations. 30 seconds to optimal position, she announced, sweat beading on her forehead as she fought to keep the ship stable in the turbulent space around the mining complex. Tank was in the cargo bay, jury-rigging a launcher for the Zentarian crystals. Dr. Voss had calculated the precise frequency needed to create a resonance cascade in the hegemony weapon systems. But the targeting had to be perfect. One shot at each destroyer, fired at the moment when their energy signatures aligned with the quantum resonant minerals in the asteroid field. Contact with mining station Theta 7. Agent Shun reported from the communication station. I got through to their emergency coordinator. They're beginning evacuation procedures, but they need at least 2 hours to get everyone to the escape pods. They don't have 2 hours, Mackenzie replied, monitoring the hegemony formation. Those destroyers are moving into bombardment position. Tank sealed the improvised launcher and made his way back to the bridge. Through the viewport, he could see the massive hegemony ships positioning themselves like sharks circling wounded prey. Their weapons arrays were glowing with barely contained energy, and their sensor sweeps were systematically eliminating the Shadowhawk's hiding places. This is it, Tank said, settling into his position at the weapons console. Either we stop them now, or 40,000 people die to cover up the fact that I can drink poison. It's bigger than that, Dr. Voss said quietly. This is about the future of human civilization, about whether we remain a slave species or take our place as equals in the galaxy. Mackenzie brought the ship around in a tight arc that put them directly between the destroyers and the mining station. Weapons hot. Targeting solution locked. On my mark, ... The first destroyer's primary cannon was cycling up to full power when Tank fired. The Zentarian crystal punched through the ship's shields and impacted directly on the weapons array. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the crystal began resonating with the quantum-resonant minerals in the surrounding asteroids, creating a feedback loop that overloaded the destroyer's entire energy grid. The massive ship went dark, its weapons systems offline, and its propulsion failing. It began drifting helplessly through the asteroid field, its crew undoubtedly scrambling to restore power before they collided with something large and solid. "One down," Mackenzie said, already lining up the second shot. 2 to go. The remaining destroyers had realized they were under attack and were turning to engage the Shadowhawk. Energy beams lanced through space, superheating asteroids and turning them into molten debris. Mackenzie threw the ship into an evasive pattern that would have impressed a fighter pilot, but Tank knew they couldn't keep this up for long. His second shot caught the middle destroyer as it fired its main cannon. The resonance cascade was even more spectacular this time. The feedback loop didn't just disable the ship's weapons. It overloaded its reactor core. The destroyer exploded in a brilliant flash. It lit up the entire asteroid field like a second. "Son, holy shit," Chun breathed. "You just killed a hegemony destroyer with a mining crystal." The third destroyer was already retreating, its captain apparently deciding that discretion was the better part of valor. But Tank knew this was just the beginning. Word of what had happened here would spread through hegemony command structure like wildfire. They would be back, and they would bring more ships. "We need to get this information to the human colonies," Dr. Voss said, backing up her research data to multiple storage devices. "People need to know what they're capable of. Already." "On it," Mackenzie replied, activating the ship's long-range communications array. "I've got contacts in every major system. By tomorrow, every human smuggler, trader, and rebel in the galaxy will know that we're not as weak as we've been told." Tank looked out at the mining station, where thousands of lights indicated successful evacuations in progress. The workers. They would live to see another day, but more importantly, they would live to see a different Galaxy 1, where humans were no longer considered a utility species to be exploited and controlled. "What happens now?" he asked. Mackenzie smiled, and for the first time since this whole adventure began, it was a smile full of hope rather than grim determination. "Now we find out what humans can really do when they stop believing the lies they've been told about themselves." Dr. Voss was already analyzing samples of Tank's blood, looking for the genetic markers that conferred immunity to Zarian 9. "If I'm right, every human carries this adaptation. It's been suppressed by environmental factors, processed foods, artificial atmosphere, medical treatments designed to make us more compatible with galactic civilization." "You're talking about deliberately weakening our species," Tank said. "I'm talking about control," Dr. Voss replied. "The hegemony has been systematically reducing human capabilities for generations. But now we know the truth. Agent Chun was monitoring incoming communications. We're getting reports from human colonies throughout the galaxy. Workers are walking off jobs, asking questions about their contracts, demanding explanations for working. Conditions that would be illegal for other species. The revolution is starting," Mackenzie said. "And it's starting because one cargo hauler decided to finish his energy drink instead of being intimidated by alien bureaucrats." Tank laughed, the sound echoing through the bridge. "You know what's funny? I still don't like the way that stuff tastes, but I'm definitely going to keep drinking it. The Shadowhawk turned away from the asteroid field, heading for the jump point. That would take them to the outer rim and the beginning of a new chapter in human history. Behind them, Mining Station Theta 7 continued its evacuation, its people now aware that they were part of something much larger than a simple industrial operation. They were part of a species that had survived the deadliest world in the galaxy, evolved immunities to the most lethal toxins known to science, and developed the capability to thrive in conditions that would kill most other life forms. They were humanity, and for the first time in centuries, they were about to remember what that really meant. The galaxy would never be the same. Asterisk.